Welcome to the next episode of the Existential Files. We might talk about altruism, we might not. We might talk about why genes replicate themselves, why they, in quotes, want to do that. We may return to some more personal questions of why did I not get a good night's sleep last night? Why do we ask these questions? Because as a reminder to ourselves, anybody listening that's still with us, if anybody's still with us, God help you, surely got something better to do. But we're doing it because, at the very least, whether or not you see yourself as interested in philosophical questions, by waking up each morning and choosing to do something, then surely you're engaging in philosophical questions. What do you say, Louie?
Yeah, I mean, you open your eyes, you put your feet out the bed, and then you've got to say, what am I doing today? And if you have to take some responsibility for that.
And most people, those out there, Louie, that have a job.
All right, yeah.
Oh no, I'm not going to dig or anything. Bit of a slide. But those of us amongst us who have jobs, who have chosen that route because we feel we have to, in order to typically get some money to pay for stuff, such as rent or a mortgage or buy food, clothes, whatever. And if it's anything above that, then great, do some nice things, buy nicer clothes, perhaps have a car, go out and do things. Then if that's the main sense of why you do something that day, then that becomes a little bit of a, what's the point? Is that what it's all about? And I do think many people lead their lives in that way, either consciously choosing that and saying, yeah, that's what I think life's about, that's what I'm going to do.
Wow.
Or they don't really think about it, saying, well, I just hadn't really thought about it. I just get up, I go to work, I come home, eat, go to bed, and do it all again tomorrow.
I mean, the difficulty is that, I totally have sympathy for that position. I totally have sympathy for that. But, if that isn't true, that's the way it has always been, historically, even in our species past. And I don't believe that just because that you find yourself within that kind of trap doesn't mean that you don't have the ability, potential, possibility to, remove yourself from it.
Absolutely. Yet it's a challenge, isn't it? So at the time of us speaking right now, let's go really kind of ground this. It's coming up to 11 a.m. in the UK of a particular weekday morning where I, in quotes, should be at a university and will soon have some meetings I should be attending. I have another set of activities or tasks I, in quotes, need to do. That's marking, preparing some teaching stuff, and so on and so forth. And I can at times feel as though, oh, yes. And I realise, guys, I'm an academic, for goodness sake. It's not a hard job. The fact that I'm able to have this conversation with you now shows I have a good deal of autonomy. And there are plenty of people out there who are doing, let's use the term, because it's the term I think you often use, shitty jobs they would rather not be doing, hard jobs, hard graft, for little money. And you must wonder, well, why do I do it? Do I do it only because I have to do that to survive? If you were to then say, okay, then let me exercise either my free will or my apparent free will and choose to do otherwise and choose to not do that job, pack it all in and go do something else. Well, there's something else in this world, at least in the Western world and most parts of the world, last time I looked. Okay, at least, well, you need money. You need something to be able to, well, if I'm going to get through the day, I've got to be able to somehow pay my way or get a roof over my head.
I mean,
or is the idea that if you do that, other things become, because another way of doing this, and I'll finish my rant, then I'll pass it to you.
Sure.
The other way of doing it, which you hear the writers talk about, or rather you hear the singers sing about, and you read the writers write about, is about finding out what is really important to you. And I mean really important, the most important thing to you, and finding a way to do that, to follow that. So it could be captured in those words such as follow your dreams or, be driven by your passion. And I think many people don't either just sacrifice their passions, as it were, and to quote a certain thing, put them in storage until you've paid off your mortgages and loans. And that's quoting a certain singer. This idea that, yeah, great to have those dreams, but in reality, I'm not able to follow them because reality dictates that I need to do X, Y, and Z. And that's the reality facing many people, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, we're covering lots of issues there. So, I mean, off the top of my head, I'm just going to respond. I mean, one of the things that pops into my mind is, again, this is from Matt Ridley book. I can't remember if it's Origin of Virtue or whatever, but it's the idea of, you know, some tribes in jungles in wherever, you know, Brazil or wherever, Papua New Guinea or whatever, they don't allow people to accumulate wealth. Because if you accumulate wealth, you're kind of showing off. And everybody basically has the barest minimum. And everybody's very happy because they're not striving to accumulate. And, you know, it's the work little, want little. Right? And that by not spending their day accumulating these things that they don't want, they're not, you know, they're not tired and they're not doing what they want to do, they don't want to do. And in a way, the rule of not accumulating wealth for wealth's sake keeps everybody in a kind of, we're all right, we're kicking back, we're not really doing very much. And I mean, I have a certain sympathy for that. I have a great sympathy for Karl Marx's son-in-law was, I think it's Paul Lafarge or something, and he wrote a book called The Right to be Lazy. And he basically argues that, you know, if there are other people in the world who are saying, you know, you must do this, you must work, you must, you know, you know, you must justify your existence with the pound.
Absolutely.
Fuck that shit. You exist. You have every right to exist just as much as any other thing, plant, person on this planet. And the idea that, you know, you cannot be lazy if you want to be, that I totally, I mean, I subscribe to your right to be lazy if you want to. Now, yes, of course, we need money, we need food, we need shelter. Yes, I understand that there is a reality that we find ourselves trapped in. But just because the system is broken doesn't mean we can just, you know, we should just put up with it.
So what should we do, in your opinion?
I mean, we find ourselves in a broken world, don't we? I mean, the fact is that, you know, we can have a utopian ideal of what we would like to happen. I mean, you know, my utopia is far removed from where I find myself. So
what's your utopia? And I reckon that's maybe a very difficult one to answer.
No, I mean, I subscribe personally to I'm a left-leaning person, so I don't like adding up. If somebody wants to spend their day doing fuck all, I don't think that's anyone else's business. I think that, you know, a welfare state is there to, you know, and government is there to help everybody, you know, especially those who can't help themselves. I personally, I mean, I am a great fan of H.G. Wells.
Well, let me catch you on that one. I love doing this. I love sort of trivializing things. Then you can get back into the deep stuff. So who are you talking about, sorry?
I'm an absolute fan of H.G. Wells, the writer.
Oh, so I hope Rachel listens to this. Now, you and I know who Rachel is, of course, because she's got a real little thing about H. Because the actual letter is H.
Well, H.G. Wells.
To H. There's really a point. Little niggle at you. There you go. So you mean H.G. Wells? What does the H stand for?
Wait, this is coming from Mr. The Origin of the Species. I mean,
all right.
The origin of the species of Darwin of the.
All right then. Made your point, sir. What does H stand for H.G. Wells?
I think it's Herbert.
Herbert. Okay.
Herbert George, I believe.
Herbert George Wells. So
and Herbert Wells, H.G. Wells, was basically a rock star. He was a fucking rock star back in the day. He was a science teacher in Kent, and, you know, he wrote Time Machine, Invisible Man, War of the Worlds. I mean, and these are you want some Island of Dr. Moreau. These are some you know, ripping good yarns, fucking amazing books. And he was a rock star, and you know, he basically wanted what he called an open conspiracy. He wanted to overturn the governments of the world. He wanted to replace it with a one world government ruled by science. Well, science-based, you know, a science-based, science-informed one world government. Nice idea.
So that would be close to your utopia as well, as you, because we were doing this in terms of utopia, yeah. That at least approximates what, yeah. You can see how that could be.
I mean, well, put it this way: I don't believe in the nation state. I'm not a patriot. You know, for me, we're all Africans. You know, we're all descended from Africans. We're all one species. The idea that you can put a wall around a country and say we are better than you. I mean, you're a psychologist, Matt. You know, I'm a psychologist. We know that as soon as you create groups, that's the easiest way of creating conflict between groups. You know, putting each other into groups, and
absolutely,
we are one species.
And again, there was some great, interesting things, so-called coincidentally. So looking through your blog reminded me of, this is now a post from probably about at least 10 years ago, the Zimbardo prison experiment.
Yeah.
And that's something possibly I've even blogged about at some point as well. And it's the classic one where students were effectively, they signed up to take part in the study, but they then rounded up, as it were, or as part of the whole study, they were arbitrarily divided into prisoners and wardens. And you started to see how they behave. Once people took on those roles and treated the others, it was as though these people deserved to be treated that way, even though it was being essentially randomly determined. Yeah. So yes, completely agree. And then the other one it makes you think of in relation to some work or the experience astronauts often report when they go up into space and look back at the Earth, see this one Earth. And of course, there's no divisions. This idea of borders between countries, then they're not real. They are effectively arbitrarily placed there, or they've arisen because of conflict and so on. And often they talk about this experience, and you get a new way of seeing things based upon having gone into space, looking back at Earth, and recognizing we're all there on one planet.
Well, of course, I mean, divide and conquer. I mean, this is a question I find very interesting. Things like, you know, are psychopaths born, or can you be a psychopath? Can you, I mean, again, we started off talking about altruism. Is dominating other people for your benefit, can you do that intelligently, you know, after the fact? Or, you know, is it something that you say, and a lot of people, for example, look at psychopathic, you know, murderers, for example, and think there's something wrong with them. Is it possible to be a psychopath once you've evaluated the evidence and decide that, hey, fuck it, I'm going to stand on people. I'm going to take the products of their life, you know, the effort of their life, and I'm going to make my life better off the top of their effort. And certainly, you know, from my perspective, I mean, I always love the pyramids. I mean, for me, I ask people this quite often, you know, why, you know, the pyramids are a symbol of power, you know, and you were supposed to stand in front of the pyramids and you were supposed to go, fucking hell, man, I haven't got a fucking chance. These people, you know, they're gods. They, you know, look at that fucking building. And it was supposed to manipulate you into just accepting the order of the world. Well, I mean, you know, I think in some ways the priesthood, however you might describe it, have passed on that information over, you know, thousands of years, how to manipulate people. I.e., how to respect the institutions that benefit them and keep the masses down.
And at the risk of us then launching into a whole new thing about the selfish gene, so I'm just doing a check with you in terms of the time. Is this something we want to continue now or pause? You know, there's something there about, if we take that back to the genetic level, so what's been the process that means that, yeah, actually, this idea that at least humans, and this is where I'm starting to challenge because I've never got quite the language for evolution in terms of getting it right. But what has been the process saying, well, actually, that's how it's arrived. So, yeah, but that doesn't feel as though that would have made sense, because now, what's the evolutionary reason to say, well, actually, now then, rather than be acting for the greater good, I'm starting to act for the individual sense of, well, now I'm in this position just by chance or by random mutation. I happen to be in a position here where I'm the one ruling it over others. Why are they not? Why is there? You know, I'm fumbling for words, but you understand what I'm trying to get at.
Okay, we'll talk about this in future episodes, but okay. I'm going to deal with one topic very quickly. Yeah. And one of the words that were coming out, we're ending this episode, Machiavellian. And the fact of the matter is that say bonobos, baboons. Baboons work in cohorts of 2, for example, when they are mating. So two male baboons will work together to essentially rape a female. One will hold them down and the other one will fuck her. And then what they will do is they will...
I'm just going to say, go where my line then. You know, we're recording this, aren't we?
Sure.
We can feel this being part of this one. I just already,
sure.
Maybe that's my ego coming to a sense of, oh, I get uncomfortable.
Right.
I want to say that out there. Just I'm speaking from my heart. If I just let that pass without saying, oh, do we really want to say that or say it in that way?
Can I finish my story and then we can...
Yeah. Well, long as I've had my voice there to say, I felt uncomfortable said that. So by all means.
So one baboon holds down the female and they have non-consensual relations since she's being held down. And then they reciprocate. The other male, the male that didn't get to mate, is given his chance. The other baboon holds the female down and he has a go. And we call this in evolution reciprocal altruism. You do a job for me and I will do a job for you. And that this is one of the suggestions why brains in our ape ancestors got big, because you needed to remember who owes you something. And we call that, to some extent, Machiavellian intelligence, because it's about kind of politics. Does somebody owe you? You recognize an individual and you recognize that they owe you something.
Okay, so it's kind of the idea of horse trading in politics then. So political discussion is often, well, if you do this for me, I'll do that for you, and if you'll need that, I will do that kind of thing. A lot of modern politics has that nature, doesn't it?
And that is independent of the kinship. These two individuals won't necessarily be identical kin or be very closely related. What they're doing is they're increasing their success, their genetic success, by coordinating their behavior. Both of them, their success increases because they couldn't mate by themselves. So they're helping each other, and we create altruistic behavior. But it requires not just genetic relatedness, it requires people to remember. Because if you don't remember who owes you something, then what you get, and Dawkins talks about this in Selfish Gene, we could talk about this later, is something called social loafing. And social loafing is where he helps you do he helps you do something and you don't repay him back. And if nobody remembers, then you get people who just loaf and take and take and take, and they are successful in the future. Their genes are successful without the effort, without the risk. And if you're successful without the risk, then they are going to dominate the gene pool, and then nobody does any of it at all, and the whole system breaks down.
And on that note,